Welcome to Musing on the Bard. I'm your host, Sally McLean. On today's episode, we welcome the wonderful British actor, Leo Atkin. Leo has been an actor for 40 years and has been privileged to perform in some of the most beautiful and historic theatres in the world, as well as some of the most wonderful castles in Europe, including the Manoel Theatre, Malta, Schloss Hohenzollern, apparently the model for the castle in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and Lenzburg Castle, among others. Theatre credits include Twelfth Night, See How They Run, A Midsummer Night's Dream, King Lear, touring Europe, Scandinavia, and most memorably, Japan, The Old Curiosity Shop, Merchant of Venice, Dick Whittington, Beauty and the Beast, Treasure Island, the cult musical Saucy Jack and the Space Vixens at the Albany Theatre for the National Theatre, and almost 2 years as George, the boxing coach, and covering Billy's dad in Billy Elliot the Musical, UK and international tour. TV credits include dramas Coronation Street, Doctors, Merseybeat, Coasting and 999 for the BBC, the second series of Sky TV's Brassic, and the BBC comedy series The First Team. Shakespeare Republic audiences will remember Leo from his wonderful work as Puck in Shakespeare Republic, All the Webs of Stage, The Lockdown Chronicles, a performance that was awarded alongside the rest of our amazing cast with Best Ensemble International Narrative at the 2021 New Zealand Webfest, Best Ensemble Cast Drama at the 2021 British Web Awards, Best Ensemble Performance at the 2022 London Webfest in the UK, and nominated for Best Ensemble Performance Drama at the 2022 International Academy of Web Television Awards in the USA. So, sit back, relax, and listen in on this thoughtful and fascinating conversation about Shakespeare, acting, and more with today's guest, Leo Atkin.
I've been an actor now professionally for 45 years. Actually writing that down, it made it very hard to comprehend how long it's been. The part that Shakespeare's played in my longevity and survival has been pretty immense. I've been fortunate enough to play some incredible roles. As a result of that, I've managed to travel the world. And those roles, no matter how small or, in quotes, insignificant they are, they seemed at the time, they've helped me in so many ways. My instincts as an actor have been supported by others' responses to what I've done. As a result of that, my confidence as a performer, as a creator, has been boosted. My skills have been stretched by the sheer complexity of Shakespeare's work and the respect that he engenders in you when you really work on the characters. It's been probably the highlight. To work on Shakespeare has been an absolute joy and a terror in equal measure, because you're faced with this complex language and you have to really work, as I said earlier, really work at it. And that work is so rewarding and so enjoyable. And as I say, terrifying in equal measure. But at the end of it, you come out of it feeling much more alive as a person and as a performer. So I have a lot to thank Shakespeare for.
Leo Atkin, welcome
Yes.
to Musing on the Bard.
Thank you. Yeah.
So lovely.
Lovely to see you again.
Oh, and you too. I was just about to say exactly the same thing. Snap. It's great. That is such a lovely statement around how Shakespeare has impacted you as an actor and in your career.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'd like to kind of actually look at the whole idea of becoming an actor, when did that first enter your consciousness that this is what you wanted to do?
It's it's so funny that you should ask that question, because up until yesterday, when I realized that we were doing this today, it was like, oh God, I'm a week behind. My first thoughts were when I was an adult and I decided that I wanted to go into amateur dramatics. And I was literally lying in bed last night and I remembered the exact moment that I realized I wanted to be a performer. And that was some 60 odd years ago at primary school. And it hadn't occurred to me. The memory had not gone, but it was very far back in the mind. And I was in a little school play called The Bird with the Broken Wing. And I was the bird with the broken wing. And I remember the feeling of standing in front of a packed room of people and receiving that applause. And on a childish level, a childhood level, that was great. But what I also remember was how enjoyable actually performing was. And that I'd forgotten, that first experience of performing, of learning a script, began so many years ago and continued later. It was really weird. At primary school, again, we had a little thing. I'm talking about the 1950s now. I'm older than I look. And we used to have little performances, and people would be asked to do a little turn, and I would get up in front of the class and sing songs. In those days, it was Cliff Richard was number one, So it's yeah, exactly. You may laugh.
No, I love it. It's great.
But I was something like 7 or 8 at the time, and that was it. And I suddenly realised that I loved performing. I was instinctively a performer, and I never knew that until I remembered it last night, and for the first time analysed it. And it's only later as an adult that I came to perform. At school, I used to sing. I sing as well. I loved folk music, and folk music in the 60s was very big. You got your Simon and Garfunkel and the Peter, Paul and Mary, or not the most cutting edge thing, but that sort of the protest, Dylan, all that whole protest movement. I was involved in singing all those songs. I remember seeing all 11 minutes of Desolation Row to an audience in a folk club. But
Wow.
all of that was sort of it was a hobby and it was fun. It was only when I went into amateur dramatics as a young adult that I started to really, for want of a better word, blossom. I really came alive on stage, in rehearsal and on stage. And that very, very long-winded way of answering that question, how did it start? Started a hell of a lot earlier than I realized myself.
That's amazing. It is interesting, isn't it, that we kind of discount the experiences potentially that we had as small children in regards to performance because, well, you were just a little kid and whatever. I mean, my first performance was in kindergarten in the nativity play.
Yeah.
And I remember I really wanted to play Mary. And I was cast as the angel, and I was so cross. All of 3.5 years old, and I wanted the lead role, and I didn't get it. And I remember being really angry about that. But then I also just loved playing the angel because I realized that she was so pivotal to the entire story. So actually, I think that was probably when I discovered I was ambitious.
Wasn't you on video that pulled the baby Jesus out of the crib and threw him on the floor, was it?
No, it's not. No, luckily.
Classic piece of YouTube stuff.
Absolutely. Luckily, I had enough professionalism even at that age to know I couldn't destroy the play. I actually had to do what I was directed to do, which was appear and, bless the baby and all the rest of it. But yeah, that was it is interesting that you've only just realised that. I love that you've made that discovery.
I remember it vividly. So,
isn't it interesting too how vivid that memory is, no matter how long ago? Like I think I remember how I felt being up there, appearing as the angel. And what was great, I think, for me is I popped up as the angel and the audience went, oh, in a really good way. They gasped because I was so angelic, this little cherub child. And I didn't realize that's what they were reacting to. I just thought it was because I was being so amazing. But yeah, I think it was the realization too that I was getting to tell a story and that probably also that idea of, as you were talking about before in your introduction, there's no such thing as a small part. Everything is so important and integral. So I love that you had that memory realization. That's so great. Well, I mean, so you talk about being in Amdram, and I relate, totally did the same thing, was in amateur dramatics as well over here. So when did you end up making that shift across to deciding you could be an actor professionally?
There are certain moments in your life that you can never forget. And I was doing Amdram up here. It was musicals, started off in musicals, and I was getting a lot of really great feedback. I was playing Oklahoma. There's a role called Ali Hakim, who's the Persian peddler. And when I joined the Amdram company, nobody wanted to play him. So they said, would you be interested? I went, yeah, okay. And I went out there and, everybody loved the comic. I'm the comedian. And they'd all missed it. They'd all missed how funny that character was. And as time went on, I was only there for about 3 or 4 years before I went to drama school, but I was being given roles and people were saying, you're good enough to be professional. I'm like, oh, no, you're really good. I mean, I've told this story so many times to people, so bear with me. But I remember thinking that, yes, I could, maybe I could. And I was doing A Man for All Seasons. I was playing the common man. He's the character that links all the scenes in the stage play. Our usual rehearsal period was we would start at 7:30, go through till 10, up to the pub, couple of pints, go home, bit of a laugh. The director said, oh, we're going to work on your linking bits tonight. So we worked on them and everyone worked hard. And it was really one of the most concentrated times that I'd had. And at the end of the night, said, right, let's finish. And I went to my mate and I said, oh, blimey, that was hard. We're coming up for a pint. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, up the road for a pint. He said, they're shut. I said, what do you mean? He said, do you know what time it is? No. He said, it's after 11. And I'd worked for an hour longer and I hadn't even looked at the clock. And I can remember thinking, all I do at work is watch the clock waiting to go home for 5 o'clock. There's got to be something better. As I say, people had said to me, you're good enough to be pro. And I went and had a chat with a drama advisor for the council that I knew, who was ex-RSC. And he said that you've got enough of the two things that you need, but not too much in either, which I think I took to mean balanced. And that was talent and enthusiasm. And he arranged for me to meet the head of the local drama school in Manchester Polytechnic, as it was, Manchester Theatre School, which is an accredited drama school alongside RADA and Central and all the others. And they offered me a place there and then. It was like, oh, this could actually happen. So I was married and we just found out we were expecting a child. So there was quite a strange meeting with the rest of the family when we told them, hey, we got some news for you. We're going to have a baby. Oh, yeah, great. Yeah. Oh, and Leo's giving up his job to go to drama school. Hey, oh, that was it, really. And that's how I became a professional actor.
Oh my gosh, I love it. At one, oh my goodness, at a time when, yes, I can imagine the family's response. It's hard enough
Yeah.
normally, let alone when you go, oh, by the way, I'm going to be a parent and I'm going to drama school.
Yep. Yes, it was. It was.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah.
I love that Ali Hakim was your role that you took and found so much in, because I think we've had this conversation before, but my big breakout role, I guess, in the Amdram scene was kind of the second show that I did, which was Oklahoma, and I played Ado Annie.
Oh,
And
yes, I remember we
yes,
talked about this. Yeah.
pretty sure we talked about this, and honestly, those two characters together are hilarious.
Yes. Yes.
And there is so much comedy gold to be found, and I just, yeah, I love that we share that connection as well, that there's that play is the one, that
Yeah.
that musical is that was where Ado, there's such freedom discovered, I think, in those roles too, because
Yeah.
you have permission to just go for it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. You can't go over the top with them in many ways. You know,
No,
they're just, yeah.
and being grounded in the reality of what's going on for both of them too. It just, it's such a
Yeah.
fertile ground to play with. No, I love that. So then you went to drama school, and
Yes.
at what point is that where you first encountered Shakespeare?
I knew about Shakespeare. You've got to bear in mind that I'm a child of the 50s and, you know, working class as well. And working class and theatre acting, Shakespeare, no, forget it. They didn't mix. My first experience of Shakespeare was at school, grammar school, when we would read, we would sit at our desks and we would read a part. We would go around it. The next person would read the next character that turned up, and then we'd do it again. I mean, for quite a few years, I was called Fleance because we'd read the Scottish play, and I read Fleance. So Leo Fleance, that thing.
Of course.
What we did, one of the Henrys, I think, Julius Caesar. We did, but we just sat there reading it, and like every schoolboy crawling unwillingly to school, I hated it. I hated it. You were taught, oh, isn't this beautiful? And you think, oh, God, no, it's not actually. It's boring. Yeah, I just hated Shakespeare. Of course, then I got into the performing, and we did stuff at drama school, just classes, lessons, and just various little bits, scenes as acting exercises. And we found, oh, yeah, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. And I think it was some years later. I mean, I'd done some Manchester Fringe productions, but I'd not seen any Shakespeare until I'd seen some films. I'd seen the Olivier films, the Henry V, and oh my God, that's so tedious. And I really didn't enjoy them. I thought they were, hello, wonderful. And everybody's talking with a plum in their mouths,
Mm.
and you think, no, this is not right. I was interested in Shakespeare. I could see that it was more than I'd experienced before, but I'd never really got into it. When I went to work for Northern Broadsides, I was very lucky. I filled a slot in Northern Broadsides. The guy who ran Northern Broadsides, a guy called Barry Rutter, who was a Northern actor from Hull, and he wanted to play major roles. He'd been, I think, at the RSC or the National, whatever. But because of his Northern accent, he wasn't, he wasn't right for them, I believe. I mean, I stand to be corrected. So he believed that Shakespeare sounded better in a Northern accent because, as you might have gathered from my speech, the vowels are flatter and more guttural, and the consonants are very hard. They are, they you can't miss them, basically. And he believed that Shakespeare sounded better in the Northern voice. And when I went to work for him, I could see, yeah, bloody hell, he's absolutely right. That language came alive. In your mouth, it came alive. The characters came alive, and it was a revelation. And as you're possibly aware, I've done so many characters, particularly with things like TSMGO, and I've tried not to do them in a soft southern accent where everything is so wonderfully lyrical and the vowels are elongated. And no, you give it some, as we say, give it some thrutch. Get it in your mouth and get it out. Really give it some stuff. And that's what I love about the language now, is that the language comes alive in a proper accent, dialect, whatever. So
Yeah.
And I've gone off the point now.
No, you haven't. Not at all. It's a really valid point. And as you know, you would have heard this in the years since, the whole thing around the accent. And this has come up before, actually, with another of our interviewees, another one of our guests. But the accent on the stages when Shakespeare was actually performing these works with his troupe originally would have been nowhere near a received pronunciation accent. It didn't exist. They would all been regional accents of one description or another. And I think that's what is so interesting about this discovery with this company in the north is absolutely those accents would have been probably closer to how those words originally sounded in the hundreds.
But you can imagine, if you can imagine, Shakespeare was from Stratford, Warwick, that area, which isn't far from the West Midlands, and they talk like that. It's all, it's a lot more guttural. It's a lot in the nose, and so he'd have talked very similar to that, not exactly like that, but he would have, as you say, had an accent. So it's not a stretch to think that that's how he wrote.
Right.
That he was writing in that accent. Plus, also sentence structure. A lot of what he writes is it's rhythmic. It's iambic pentameter, but you notice that he very often has the verb at the end or somewhere well out of position that we would normally do it. And I don't believe to a certain extent that it's not deliberate. I think that's how they spoke.
Yep. I agree.
And that's it. Yeah. And I also think that ties in very, very much with why Shakespeare is absolutely loved in Europe, particularly in Germany, because he's much more easy to understand over there with that sentence structure than he is over here.
Yeah, absolutely. It is very, I mean, it's interesting that you made the comment too, and as you know, living there, but it is an interesting thing that it's taken a while for mainstream theatre companies to kind of embrace that idea that you can perform Shakespeare in your natural accent, and that it is that, as you say, the way the language is written has, I believe, too, come out of how he and everyone around him spoke. The iambic pentameter is actually almost naturally present in the writing because they spoke that way, particularly when doing the poetry.
I agree. When I was working with Broadsides, we did some workshops for local schools at the times, and the more I worked with the language, and the more I worked with the play, the more I came to the belief that in many ways we speak in iambic pentameter without even knowing it. A number of times I've been in conversation and I've said something and it's like da 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 da. Probably if you rewind this and record this and listen to it, a lot of what we're saying comes over in iambic pentameter. It's a natural rhythm. It's here. It's the heartbeat. The heartbeat of language, literally.
Yeah.
It sounds weird.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I was convinced that's why we love it so much, because it responds to our heartbeat.
Yeah.
And I think it has that word heart for Shakespeare works on much more. It's not simply an emotional, but a physical level as well, I think, for Shakespeare.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of this, then, what do you think is the most important aspect or skill required to successfully perform Shakespeare?
Fearlessness.
Yeah.
We and I'm using this as a big we treat Shakespeare and his language with, in some ways, too much respect. Maybe respect isn't the right word, or too much fear of him.
Mm.
For years, for decades, we have thought of Shakespeare as a poet. The Germans call him the German poet for many reasons, and I think that's to do with his sentence structure, his language. It's much more accessible for them. But I think we tend to think of him as a poet, and forget the poems that he wrote, the sonnets, etc. His plays, they they are poetic, but they're people. They're people speaking, and we always turn poetry. It's almost like it's in italics with quotation marks, and poetry is wonderful, and words with forget that. Shakespeare wrote plays. Plays are about people, and people talk funny. There's the classic Shakespeare's lists, the classic Polonius. Don't do that because that's not right. Don't do that because that. But all of these lists, all of these descriptions come out of people, and that's part of the art, the skill of an actor is to find what makes those people tick, what makes them say those words. There are so many things I've learned about how to approach Shakespeare from various people that I've worked with, which has been really helpful. But the lists aren't, you're not saying a list, they're all separate thoughts. The thoughts, and that, Polonius, don't do that. Oh, and don't do that, and you must do that. It's because every time a thought is occurring. So forget this wonderful flowery language and da 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 da. Think, do this. And that comes out of character. That the character that you're playing, and that you find that character through discovery in the rehearsal process, which is possibly my favorite part of the process of working on Shakespeare, to find those things, to discover what you're saying and more why.
Yeah. No,
I told you I could talk for England.
Yeah. Yes, but you have interesting things to say, Leo. So this is always a good thing. But I think you're right. I think yes, he wrote characters. I mean, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think part of that was because he also began as an actor, and he got used to that idea of inhabiting characters and looking at it, walking in the character's shoes. And I think he took that and put it into his writing as well. And he was a keen observer of the people around him and human nature. And I'm quite sure he also took great delight in certain people in his circle that he could then put into the play and lampoon or play up a certain trait or whatever. I mean, every writer, there is that joke, be careful what you say to a writer because you could end up in their work. Be nice, otherwise you're in trouble. I think absolutely that's what also then gives you the need for the words is what is the focus, really, because right now, as you and I are talking now, we both we feel a need to say what we're saying.
Yeah.
Characters are no different. They just speak in language that maybe we don't speak quite the same way now, but it's not that different to modern English.
No.
Well, I think, okay, so staying on the Shakespeare performance thing, what would you say has been your most difficult experience performing Shakespeare, and what did that teach you?
I think challenging has got to be Lear, because it wasn't simply about the character, it was about a physicality. Lear goes mad, and in performance, that was so liberating. That once the words were there, once everything was in here, he said, pointing to his chest, as well as in here, pointing to his head. Once I was completely comfortable with what I was saying and why I was saying it, and that's important, then to get it out with the height of emotion and freedom that was required was liberating. It was a long tour, 9 months I was playing Lear. And as you probably know, that it can be very stressful, touring and working closely with a few other people, and it can be hard, very hard. So in many ways, the Lear madness was like a therapy, because you could just let it out, give it, give it full range, and there was no way you could go over the top with it, because it was insanity, it was madness. So be insane, see a little mouse jump off the stage. I think I did that once, jumping off the stage and jumping back on and just completely running riot. And as I say, it was totally liberating. So it was hard and it was challenging, but liberating in equal measure. The challenge was in rehearsal to find those moments, to find those meanings, because a lot of this language is very dense, to find those moments, but then to be allowed to relish the words. Lear's final words, or nearly his final words, are never, 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 never. And, to scream off stage and then come on and find those words and just let the emotions out was so, I want to say enjoyable, but it's not, liberating. I've said it before, liberating, but challenging in equal measure, because you've got to, as an actor, you've got to let yourself go. And that is some of the hardest things to do, is to open yourself up, because when, as humans, we don't open up. We don't like to open ourselves up to anything, really. We try to be as closed off as we can for self-protection. But when you're doing something like that, you've got to allow it. You've got to allow people in and bare your soul, bare your chest, bare your soul, and just say, this is how I see it. Take it for what it is.
Yeah. Was that
Go on.
Was that actually the tour that toured Europe, didn't it?
Yeah, Europe, Scandinavia, Japan.
And where were you performing as you toured around Europe and Japan?
We started in Europe. Well, we opened in Japan, and we were touring. We were touring mainly universities and the odd theatre here and there. A couple of American forces bases. Interesting, to say the least.
Very.
Yes, an education. Some lovely people, but an education. But Japanese universities were, they were just astonishing. They treated us like royalty, but they adore Shakespeare. I think I might have told you this story before. We turned up to one university, Merseybeat University. We turned up at this place, and we were taken to the Shakespeare Hall. So we drove the van up to the doors, and above the doors is the classic frieze of Shakespeare, the beard and everything. Walk through, and there's a reproduction of a reclining Shakespeare on the, writing. Oh, they like Shakespeare. Shakespeare Hall gave it away. So we wheeled our equipment round to a set of double doors, and they said, "There's the stage. You can go and set up on the stage." And no exaggeration, we opened these double doors and we walked through into the Globe Theatre.
Oh my goodness!
It was a complete reproduction of the Globe Theatre indoors at this university. And it was, the whole thing. I've been to the reconstructed Globe in London since, and the Japanese one, you couldn't fault it. It was just like, what, it was incredible. Yeah.
Wow.
Complete indoor reproduction of the Globe. And that just told you how much they love Shakespeare.
Why do you think there is that absolute fascination with Shakespeare in places like Japan?
I wish I knew, because I wish I knew more about the Japanese mentality for, culture that they did. But they do love him. Maybe, I mean, you've got to look at things like Ran,
Mm.
the Kurosawa film, which is a retelling of Lear.
Yes.
So you've got to look at that. They just love Shakespeare, and it's not, they don't love the English. They just love that sense of ritual. I think there's a ritual nature to it. Maybe they cottoned onto that.
Yeah.
But I am desperate to go back to Japan, just to, because I didn't get much chance to sample the culture, but I'd love to go and see, to tour around it again as a tourist rather than a performer. It's the most wonderful country, and the people are so gorgeous. They're just so friendly and open and welcoming and respectful.
Yeah.
It was a joy to be there. But to get back to the question, yeah, we toured in Germany. We were touring open air castles, schlosses, and various other open air venues during the summer, and then come autumn and towards winter, we were and ended up into theatres.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
That's extraordinary.
it was wonderful. It's literally 20 years ago now, and I absolutely love it. We played in all sorts of castles and schlosses outdoors. One of them, I think, was Hohenzollern, which was the model for the castle in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Oh my gosh. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah. Getting into there was unbelievable, because we would literally be driving along, and we'd see the castle in the distance, and we'd approach it, and then suddenly we had to turn off before we got to the castle. We turned off, and we drove through a spiral tunnel, a spiral tunnel, and came out on the forecourt of the castle on the hill.
Oh, wow.
It was like, oh dear. And then of course we had to get out again. So
Yeah, right.
but there were so many. There was one castle where our set had to be offloaded from the van onto a hoist. When I say a hoist, I'm not talking like a dumb waiter. I'm talking like a cage with a rope that somebody upstairs had to then winch up. And then we walked up 3 or 4 flights of steps into the castle, and then offloaded from this hoist. It was medieval. It was literally medieval.
Wow.
It was fantastic. Then we
That
went
is
to
brilliant.
Gruyere, the town Gruyere, which is in Switzerland. But that castle was just amazing. It was tiny, but it was just wonderful to walk around the ramparts and look out over the countryside. It's, as you can imagine, it's a tour that stays with me. And I keep finding pictures of it somewhere. Oh yeah, remember that bit. Oh, yeah. So thank God for photographs.
Right. I'm buying the book, by the way, when you write this memoir. That sounds like my dream tour, to be honest. Going around.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the castles might potentially have started to blend after a while. It was, but that's amazing to perform Shakespeare, to perform Lear in
Yeah.
castles everywhere around
Yeah.
Europe. That's great.
Well, getting Lear was an experience as well, because I didn't actually go to audition for it. I went to audition for Polonius for a 3-month tour. It was a 2-day audition, and as I say, my auditioning was for Polonius. So we had acting, we had singing, we had movement classes, and of course, being my age, I sort of stayed as far near the back with the movement classes as I possibly could. The singing, no problem. So then they asked me back, and they said, we'd like you to come back for the next day. We just wanted to make sure that you were all right with the job. And I said, oh, yeah. Polonius, yeah, 3 months on Polonius. And they said, oh, no, we're looking at you for Lear. we've got a tour in Lear for 9 months. Would you be all right? And oh, yeah, sure, yeah, fine, yeah. Which part? And he looked at me like I was an idiot and went, Lear. And I'll have to talk to my wife.
I bet. Oh my.
Which, well, 9 months, because they said that it's 9 months. Oh, so I rang her up and I said, they're looking at me for Lear for 9 months. And she said, what are you doing? Are you asking my permission? I said, yeah. She said, don't be an idiot. You got to do it. So that was it.
Love your missus. She's brilliant and so supportive.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How hilarious, though, to go from Polonius, who absolutely, I can see why you were going for Polonius, because, yes, you make a very good Polonius, but to go from that to Lear, wow.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Beard down to me chest. It was great.
Of course you would have. Oh, my goodness. That would have been so brilliant. I would love to have seen that show. I would have been fascinated to see that show because you would have been excellent in it. I did have a question about what was the most unusual setting that you've performed Shakespeare, but we may potentially have already covered that, have we?
I don't know. I'm just trying to think now. A monastery. It was.
I'm sorry, what?
Well, it was a little place in Utstein Kloster in Norway, which a cloister is a monastery. It's no longer used, but it was a little place out in the middle of nowhere. When I say nowhere, we drove from the airport in Norway, which one I can't remember, 2 or 3 hours, all along the coast, and we ended up at an old monastery, a cloister, and we performed there outdoors on the grass outside. And what was astonishing was, given that there was nothing else around, the audience came literally from miles around, and we were playing to a massive number of people, hundreds, but then given the sparsity of houses in the area, very unexpected. So we were playing on this lawn outside this monastery.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
How amazing.
On top of a watchtower. Oh, there was this horrendous place in Germany, a almost Wagnerian Gothic structure that we played in front of, with which cascaded down. There was like a fountain that cascaded down a set of steps to a forecourt below, outside the Swedish royal palace.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
that's
some
amazing.
Gorgeous places. Yeah,
it's amazing. It's interesting, actually. So you having performed, I presume all of that was Lear. Was that Lear performing these places?
Yeah.
Okay, so you performing Lear, and this, this is a question that's just occurred to me, but I'm interested. As far as reactions from the audience, did you notice any differences, country to country, town to town? Was there? Or do you feel that it was very much universally received in a very kind of similar way from the audiences? Were some louder, quieter?
You got to bear in mind that everybody who came knew what they were coming to see. So particularly the open air performances in Europe were playing to Schlosses, to local people. They knew it. In Germany particularly, they knew that they were coming to see Shakespeare in English.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So it was all English?
All in English, yeah.
Wow.
The same with anywhere in Europe. In Japan, not so much. That was much more student orientated. There was, I do remember, one performance in Holland to students, and that was something that I will try very hard to forget, because they were awful. They were rude, noisy, disruptive. I played Shakespeare. I did the Scottish play, one of my very earliest performances around England and Scotland, touring with a group who went from place to place. And some of the responses to them from those audiences were awful. I can remember a school in Leicester where eggs were thrown on the stage.
You got the full Elizabethan treatment.
And a dart was thrown on the stage.
Oh, no.
No, it's true.
Wow.
Yeah, a dart was thrown on the stage. We had 2 replica guns in that show, and they were stolen. Yeah.
Bloody hell. Really?
Yeah. I'm going back 40 years or so now. They went in Glasgow. We played in Easterhouses, Glasgow, which is a really poor, deprived area. Certainly one of the replica guns was stolen.
Oh my goodness. That's really interesting. I mean, I think I know from having toured, but I didn't tour Shakespeare. I've toured kind of vaudeville kind of style shows and also musicals. I find audiences obviously are different town to town. It's just what it is. They'd be very different, I think, country to country. That is really, sorry, I'm a bit blown away. I mean, that is the true Elizabethan experience. The dart, maybe not, but very similar to what Elizabethan actors would have had to deal with in the Globe, in the Swan, in the Rose, all those open-air theatres. I mean, you were competing with the audience.
Yeah, I can imagine. By contrast, though, Japan, I have this wonderful, vivid memory of we did a performance in a school, a college, an audience of about maybe 200 or 300 people, young people. And as we did the performance and did the bow and everything, and they just applauded, and we started to pack up, and a few of the students came rushing up to the front of the stage, and they were asking us questions in very broken English, and so we were trying to speak to them. So the organisers said, would you mind, we've organised a little reception for you to meet some of the students in the refectory across the road. Oh, no, absolutely fine. Would just let us pack up. So we packed up the van, and we walked across to the room to meet these few students who wanted to speak to us. And we walked through the door to a massive round of applause from at least 1,000 students.
Oh my goodness.
I do not exaggerate. This was a massive student refectory that was packed with people.
Wow.
And we were mobbed, literally mobbed. All there were 5 of us, 6 of us in the show, and we were all dragged to various parts of the thing, and then questions thrown at us, all good questions, all about Shakespeare and the language and the show and the role. So they were really, it was not, like you get in England, oh, you're an actor. Oh, yeah. Have you been on telly?
Yeah.
Are you on Coronation Street? Have you worked with anyone famous?
Yeah. Or the version over here, have you been on Neighbours or Home and Away? Yeah, I know. I know, right? Gosh, how interesting, though, that they were that engaged and so...
It was an eye-opener, and it was so wonderful to see. And that, not to the same extent, but that sort of experience of Japanese young people repeated wherever we went. It was just wonderful and so rewarding. We were made to feel like royalty, just as we were in Germany.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? In 2 countries where English obviously is not a first language. I mean, the Germans, obviously, bless them, do have English as a language, second language usually, but not their primary language. And I find that fascinating that they are so engaged and so enthralled and interested.
It's not just that it's not just Shakespeare. Germany particularly, the German culture is one of arts.
Yeah.
They adore the arts.
Yes.
And they adore people who work in the arts. So I could walk down the street or go in somewhere in Britain, England, and they'll say to me, what do you do? And for many years, I never told them because, the sort of self-deprecation that you have, the insecurity that you have for years, you can't say I'm an actor because you you still think you're playing at it in many ways. You're still learning. But, nowadays, after so many years, I can say, I'm an actor. And they go, as I said, oh, have you? Oh. But for the most part, it's like, oh, right. Oh, yeah, right. And you can almost hear them going, oh, waste of space. What a loser. Lazy bugger, can't be bothered getting a real job. You do that in Germany. They'll walk into a bar or wherever you are, and they'll say, "Oh, what do you do?" And you say, I'm an actor. Ich bin Schauspieler." The first thing they do goes, "Oh, wonderful! Do you do Shakespeare? Oh, you are treated with so much respect as a performer, as a creative over there than you are."
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Well, they also, I think it's it's Germany, where they also have essentially like a universal basic wage for artists.
Yeah. Well, it comes out of the want of a better phrase, the public purse too.
Yes.
They appreciate it, so they pay for it. They're happy to pay for it.
Yes.
I discovered that at the time, anyway. Pretty much every town had its own resident theatre company, dance company, orchestra, opera company, you name it, and all publicly funded.
Yeah.
Wow.
They understand just how much culture and art lends to society and how much it enriches society generally as a whole. Yes, it's something we could all be learning from. All the different countries could be learning from. And yes, I do know definitely. I mean, I've got some friends that are born and bred in Melbourne who moved to Berlin for this exact reason.
Yeah,
because they were visual artists or photographers or whatever, and they just knew that they would be appreciated there, and they've made very good careers there because they got to also be creative. It wasn't just about how much money can you make, that aspect of the commercialized aspect of the arts. It was more about, are you going to create art that is going to benefit the society that you're in?
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing that they've got there, definitely. Oh, don't even get me started on I can go for ages about how important the arts are to society generally, globally, but also culture, because it's something that the homogenization of culture is a real problem, and we need to be very, very wary of it, because things like Shakespeare, as we know, there are many countries that adopt his works, but what is beautiful about that is there are so many countries who then put his works into their own language, into their own culture, and that is I love that. They'll do the English version as was written, but there's also this amazing adaptation of his works into different cultures that are definitely not English or English influenced, but it's important. I mean, over here in Australia, we have Indigenous theatre companies who have been translating his works into Indigenous languages.
Wow. That's amazing.
And the sonnets and things like that, which I think is extraordinary, because, again, that just, for me, says how universal his characters are and his stories are, is that they will fit all these but they're making sure that they are retaining their own culture within that framework. And I think that's extraordinary as well. Are there any attitudes about Shakespeare or approaches to his work that you disagree with? And if that's so, what is the attitude or approach, and what's your point of view?
I think probably one of the main attitudes, I think the biggest attitude is that he's irrelevant. And I have heard that in the past, that he's irrelevant. And to me, it's the absolute polar opposite. He gets more relevant. Certain aspects of certain plays are more relevant now than they ever were when you look at it. So you just you have to work at it, but he's not irrelevant. He's never irrelevant. I mean, I've got something on, answer one of the other questions you're asking, what did it teach you? That he's universal. He's eternal, because his plays encapsulate the human experience on so many levels. So there is no way that he could ever be irrelevant, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's fascinating that of all the writers out there, playwrights out there, particularly, there are so many that contribute to the human story. But he seems to be, I will, I'll be bold and say he seems to be kind of out on his own as far as how much he managed to capture the essence of what it is to be human, how much he managed to humanize kings and queens. They may be kings and queens, but he made them living, breathing people on the page. And then the actor comes along and adds, as you know, we add our own humanity
Yeah.
to that. It is quite extraordinary. And he does the same thing where he can give a pauper dignity. I find it's fascinating to see how much, I mean, look, as we know, London was a right mix of people from all around the globe. It was a major port. You had all levels of society living there. He was living in areas where he would have been coming into contact with people from all different stratas of society, but also from all different countries and around the world. And he read a lot, I think, himself too, clearly. So it's just interesting to watch how, he makes these characters so very human and in ways that can still be quite surprising even now. I mean, you were talking about the discoveries with Lear that you made when rehearsing and getting to know that character and embodying that character. I'm sure if you came back to Lear today, you'd find new things in there because of the way that he wrote. He really let the actor also have a lot of agency in how those characters were played. So, yes, I agree with you. I think that is something I hear. Look, and we're hearing it. I get it. I'm all for new writers. Yes, please. I'm a writer myself. I'm all for encouraging new writing, and I'm all for that happening. But I don't think we need to exclude classics like Shakespeare to make room for those new writers. There should be room for all of that, not just one or the other. Because, that irrelevant thing is said here too. And it's like, look, I get you, but, he still has things to say to us.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's telling us truths that are universal and timeless. But you said something about how he managed to be so successful. And I think that's why he was successful. That's why we have so many plays of his, because people saw themselves in his writing from the very beginning. They saw the height, the elites, and they saw the dregs of society, and they related to them. So every play that he did was welcomed. Oh, when's his next one coming out? When's his next one coming out? And that's why, because people related to what he was doing. Every time he came through. So, that's why so many of his works survive, is because people loved his work.
Yeah.
And more than anybody else in that area, in that era, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, look, again, there were some extremely successful playwrights working alongside him, definitely during that time. And, Marlowe obviously is brought up quite a lot as being a very successful playwright prior to him. He was first wave of Elizabethan writers, and Shakespeare kind of came in that second wave. There were plenty that were writing at the time. But I think, and look, he also co-wrote, and this is what I think is interesting, that we have there are several plays now where they're sort of saying, especially the Henry plays, where they think he actually collaborated with Marlowe, which I love. There was this, I love the idea of these informal Elizabethan writers' rooms happening in pubs, in Southwark. I just think that's awesome that they were doing that. But I think that's the other thing. He just took, they were all kind of sponges at the time and just took in whatever was around them to write about it. He just realised they were human, and humans are multifaceted. So that's, I think, how his characters sort of play out. I'm going to ask this question. If you could ask Shakespeare one question, what would it be?
It's funny. I wrote down the question off your sheet.
Excellent.
And it's not what you might be thinking at all. Has nothing to do with him as a writer or anything. Tell me, did you really teach at my local manor?
Really? Really?
Yes.
Is he thought to have taught in your neck of the woods?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
I live in a little village called Horton, which is spelt Hogton. So it's obviously, and there was a pig farm around the corner. But the local manor is a place called Horton Tower. And it was the place, I'll tell you the legend is that Sir Richard de Horton was told that the king would be visiting the area, and everywhere else, every local manor, they all disappeared. So he had to host him, and he basically served up anything that swam, flew, or walked in the fields in this banquet. And the legend has it that they brought in, as I say, a quail, salmon, whatever, and they brought in this loin of beef, which the king carved and ate, and was so delighted by this loin of beef that he stood up, drew his sword, and knighted it. And from that day to this, that cut of beef has been known as the sirloin of beef.
Oh, really?
And my local place is where he did it. However, that was many, many years previously. In Shakespeare's time, there is known that a teacher was brought up from the Midlands to teach De Horton's children, who was known as William Shakeshaft. And he was here for 2 years.
Yes. And how long was he there for?
2 years, apparently. And he was a writer, and he taught the children at Horton Tower, and then went on somewhere around Ormskirk way.
Part of his lost years, as they're known.
That's it. So that's my question. Did you really teach our local manor, local gentry's children?
Oh my gosh, I love that. Oh, wow. You probably, this is the thing. I mean, they call it the lost years because obviously we don't really have a record of exactly where he was at the time for that period. And it was 7 or 8 years or nearly 10 years, I think, where he was not on record. But yes, I mean, I think, to be honest, look, I'm going to say, putting it into my experience, and you would have this experience too, Leo, as an actor, as a writer too, but as an actor, if I'm between gigs and things are a bit quiet, what am I going to do? I'm probably going to teach. Just what I'm going to do. And I suspect that Shakespeare was no different. So it would not surprise me if he actually had taught at the local manor house, those children of the gentry. That is hilarious. It's a great question. I love
William
that.
Shakespeare, which means that Shakespeare was his pen name.
Right? Which is then, who knows? Or maybe what he was doing was teaching under a pen name so it wouldn't affect. Maybe even back then they had the whole thing around, teaching was the lesser thing. You either do it or you teach, right? Which I still find offensive, people. That's not, don't think like that. But no. I do love that. That's awesome. All right, well, I want to move on to my quick questions about Shakespeare with you.
Go on.
Okay.
Go on. Okay.
Quick fire round. Okay, right. So we're going to start with favourite Shakespeare character.
I have two, one tragic, one comedy.
Okay.
Iago. I love Iago. The other one, and there are so many, but the one that first came to mind was Malvolio. As a comic, as a comic character. But he's not a comic character. He plays it absolutely dead straight, and he becomes sort of tragicomic.
Okay, yeah. Favourite Shakespeare play?
Oh, God. Again, automatically you want to say Lear, but that's more about the fact that I did it. The Dream, Dream, I love The Dream.
Favourite Shakespeare performance you've seen?
Right. Oh, God, so many. I was watching a TV programme by John Barton on Shakespeare many, many years ago. And I watched Patrick Stewart doing this piece, and they worked on it. And watching that work was an absolute education, because they said he did this piece, and then they talked, and he said, "No," I said, "No, I need to do it this way." And he did it that way, and it was like, oh, and it was like, I won't say jaw dropping, but it was a revelation. Oh yeah, you get an idea, run with it, and see how it. Fine. That's the rehearsal period. I also remember seeing Henry V, Michael Pennington's English Shakespeare Company in Norwich. I was working there at the time, and what I learned from that was the absolute essence of ensemble playing. There's a speech where one of the characters comes through and he's trying to, he's speechifying. He is literally speechifying to get the two sides. So this is what we need. The country is this way. The hedges are unpleached and all that. And he just goes on and on and on. And it's it's one of the lists, that we were talking about. Mm. But what was happening as he's saying this, you knew what he was saying, but all around him, the other actors are just sort of going, "Shut up, get on with it, come on, yeah, that we want to do." They are working off him, and it was beautiful to see. And as I say, it was a lesson in ensemble playing, and it was great, and it was fantastic.
I love it. And favourite Shakespeare character that you've played?
Has to be Lear.
Yeah.
Has to be Lear. You don't get a part like that very often. You just got to, it served me in so many ways as an actor, as a creator, as a person, as a human being. Just traveling around the world gave me so much in so many levels. So yeah, Lear, no question.
Absolutely. Finally, describe Shakespeare in 3 words.
Aha, I was ready for this. Observant. Mm. He's a great observer of the human condition, of people, their foibles, and he can recreate them of character. So yeah, he observes. He's surprising. He can surprise you because he'll give you something that's totally off the wall. The other was subversive.
Nice.
He is very subversive.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. So those were the 3 words, yeah.
Love it. Great final word. Oh my gosh, I love that. So true.
When we started doing the lockdown, you sent me 2 pieces. One was the Puck, which I did. And I remember reading the Hamlet, and I got lost in it, and I was like, what the hell? And the fear took me over, and I bottled it. And I'm regretting that now, because I really should have given it a lot more thought. And so I wanted to know why you'd chosen that piece for me.
Interesting. Why I chose to give you an option of Puck on one hand and Hamlet on the other, and why Hamlet? Okay. In Shakespeare Republic, generally, I like to flip expectations on their ear. So I will happily go with, a 20-something Hamlet. In Shakespeare Republic itself, I've had 2 female Hamlets. I've had a 40-something Hamlet, 30-something Hamlet working as an advisor to a politician. So not quite the Hamlet Prince thing, but sort of like Prince in Waiting. So the reason that I looked at you for Hamlet is that I am intrigued to see what actors who would not normally, be it because they're now of a certain age or a certain gender or whatever, what they would bring to that character from their life experience and through their lens. And I've got to confess, I don't often see a Hamlet that is not performed with some kind of plum in their mouth as well. So it was a combination, again, what I said before to you about knowing how good you are at the comedy, because I know you are. And look, this is a thing about comedic actors as well. There's a certain level of intelligence required when you're playing comedy that you need to have. So I was fascinated to see what would happen if you funneled all of that experience, all of that comic timing, all of your life as Leo through the funnel of Hamlet, what we would have gotten. It wasn't even about the fact that you weren't in your 20s at the time, because I honestly get very age blind when I do my casting as well. I'm intrigued. I mean, when we did the live performance for Shakespeare Republic season 2, which was done for the launch of that second season, I mean, I had Romeo, who was in his 60s, because I was really intrigued to see, and that was Stephen Costin who played that for me, and I was intrigued to see what happened when Romeo was older. And I think my big thing about Hamlet, we actually had Tim Constantine actually performed a piece from Hamlet in the Lockdown Chronicles as an NHS nurse, is what his interpretation was. But I was also intrigued to see what setting we'd put him in with you playing him at home, how that would have, do you know what I mean? So it was really out of curiosity, because I trusted that you would bring something unique and different and grounded and authentic. And I was just intrigued to see what that would look like, really.
Yeah, which just makes it harder now. I wish I hadn't done. I wish I hadn't bottled it and just.
Yeah, but again, we need to put that into context. We were all living through, as they like to call it, the once in a lifetime pandemic, whatever, once in a century pandemic. I mean, let's hope that that's what it was, and we don't have to go through it again in another decade or whatever. But we were all in lockdowns. We were separated from our normal daily life all around the world. We were dealing with our own response to that. And I'm not surprised you went for Park, because I think also what we needed at the time was levity. We needed some humour. We needed not just as audience, but I think also as performers probably needed that too. What was really interesting to me is you choosing Park. And thank you again for being so good to work with on that and for taking my suggestions and then just running with it and making it your own, because you did, and you did it beautifully. But in that character of Park, we had that, I mean, I loved that you played him as a football larrikin, essentially, trying to recreate the pub at home. But you also found this incredible poignancy without having to say a word at the end of it. And that, for me, was a big tick. That showed your range as far as I was concerned. You didn't have to play Hamlet to make that work. Like, you did it with Puck. And again, that's so unusual with a character like Puck, because people don't look for that. You grounded it in the reality of Puck being stuck at home and how would he react. So don't have regrets, Leo. You did such great work as that character, and it was such
I
a
enjoyed
delight.
it. Yeah.
No, there's no flies on you, my friend, as the Aussies like to say. You don't have anything to regret. It was amazing work.
Yeah.
But that was the reason. I'm always curious. I mean, when I cast people in Republic and related shows, related, series and things that we've done, it's just because I'm intrigued. I totally trust the actor. I mean, I've always said this, actors I work with don't necessarily have to have done any Shakespeare before. They just have to be a really strong actor. Mm-hmm. But I'm always really interested to see what they bring.
Yeah.
Because it's not all on me. I can direct. Obviously, I'll direct to a certain degree, but it's down to the actor as to what they are going to bring and from their life, from their experience. But so that was why I offered you the two very different roles.
No, that's good. That's good to know. Yeah, I'm happy with what I did as Puck. I mean, I enjoyed it, and it falls into belief I have that Shakespeare is not about language; he's about people. He's about characters, and it doesn't matter. That I think was the point about the Puck, that never mind who he is, you take that language, that scene that he's, oh yeah, I'm this. That could happen anywhere. I chose to make it in a made-up pub in my back garden because I couldn't get to the real pub. But it could be anything. Yeah. Oh, hey, that's me. I'm doing this. I'm this, that, and the other. But that piece of language could transpose to any time, any place. and it would still be valid.
Yeah.
And that to me is what Shakespeare's all about.
Was there anything else that you wanted to talk, share of acting or Shakespeare before we kind of finish up?
We both did Amdram and went into the profession. I can remember vividly my first year at drama school was awful. I found it very hard. We were doing nothing but classes and so on and so forth. And I really thought, I can't wear this. And my Amdram company came to me to say, we'd like you to be in this next show, the next musical. And I said, well, I'll have to ask permission. And I went to my tutor because the performance overlapped my first week back at second year. And I went to my tutor and I said, I want to do this show. And he said, I don't think you should. He said, it's a step backwards. And I said, I haven't done no performance. I've just done nothing but classes. And I want to do some, acting. He said, well, I can't stop you, but, all right. So I went away and I did this show. And it was possibly the biggest lesson as an actor I ever learned, because I hated it. No, that's not fair. I didn't hate it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I had previously, because all of a sudden I discovered that I wasn't an Amdram actor. I wasn't there for fun. I wasn't there to have a good laugh and just have a drink. And I was there to work, and everybody else is having a jollies around me. And I'm saying, look, can we just get up and do this bit? I want to work on this bit. I want to do this. I want to do. And the biggest lesson I learned was, don't go back. Mm. And from there on, my second and third year, I was a completely different person. From then on, I realized that I'd taken that big step, a sea change from being somebody who was doing it for fun to somebody who was really committed to doing it, who really loved the process rather than the applause, if that makes sense. I wasn't doing it to make people laugh or anything. I was doing it because I really enjoyed exploring the lines, the characters, and that fed into my Shakespeare work.
Yeah.
It stopped me being afraid of it, I think, for very early on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I don't know, maybe I've just always been super serious and super focused. When I was doing the Amdram stuff for musicals when I first started, and I started in youth theatre, so it was youth musical theatre, so I was probably about 16, 17. I actually took it terribly seriously. But there was fun. Obviously there was fun. It was fun. We went and hung out. I do remember when there was a period of time when I moved into the adult musical theatre company. I only did probably about 5 or 6 amateur shows. I didn't do a lot, but I remember moving into the amateur theatre, the adult amateur theatre company. And yeah, sure, there definitely was pubs after rehearsals. And in fact, I've got a memory of nightclubs after rehearsals, because if it was too late, the pubs were closed. We had to go to the nightclub. Anyway, I do remember that. But I was always incredibly focused on just doing the best I could do with that character and diving as deeply as I could into why was that character singing that line? Why, even doing things like No, No, Nanette, and I played Sue in that. And, what was Sue's motivation? Why does she want everyone to get along and be happy? I think I always did that to a degree. But I had a similar thing when I went to drama school. I remember I got back after doing drama school, and I trained in London, and I was gone for probably about nearly 4 years in the end. When I came back, I remember I went to see one of the Amdram shows to support my old crew that I used to work with. And I remember one of the guys walked up to me in the foyer and went, "Oh, well, now you're back from drama school, I guess you just think you're going to walk in and take all the lead roles again in all the Amdram shows." And I just looked at him and went, why would I do that? Do you know how much time and effort I've just spent literally learning how to do this professionally? Why would I? It was such a weird attitude. And that was my realization when that came out of my mouth. And I tried not to be dismissive or rude about it, but I was like, what an attitude. And then I thought, Oh, yeah, same thing. I've definitely I've moved beyond that now, and there's no dissing Amdram. I think amateur
No,
dramatists
no.
are actually really valuable, and I think if particularly if someone isn't sure, maybe do I really want to do this? Do I not? Go do it. Even if you don't want to be an actor, go and do it because it's so
Mm,
much fun and it will expand you as a human, as
mm.
the arts do. And you'll find a great
Yes.
community there generally. But yeah, it was the same thing. I was like, actually, I could no. I don't want to go and hang out at the pub and
Mm.
get into all the gossip and all the stuff that can happen in those groups. I get that anyway, doing professional shows. I don't need to be doing it at this level. Like it was just a really interesting thing. But yeah, it was the same realization. But I mean,
Yeah.
I knew at the age of 4 that I wanted to be an actor. So I've
Mm.
always been very focused on that was going to be my thing. I actually do recommend though, if people want to do Amdram, please do it because it'll just stretch you
Yeah.
as a human.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the sort of thing you can do chorus and you can do, dance team or whatever your strength
Mm.
is, and you'll just get so
Yeah.
much back from doing it.
Yeah. And you'll learn and you'll get better at it, and you possibly may want to do more. And
Correct.
great, yeah. If you
Absolutely.
enjoy it, just go for it. Don't
There are
worry.
so many performers, interestingly, in Australia that I know. And look, we're not a huge country, so our industry is not massively big. But I mean, from my neck of the woods where I was doing Amdram, there are so many out there now that are professionally writing musicals that are, playing lead roles on Australian stages, but also on the West End and Broadway, who are now musical directors for professional musical theatre. I mean, I did predominantly musical theatre, so that's sort
Yeah.
of the crowd that I knew. But it's hilarious to watch. It's like, wow, there are so many that sprang out of that scene that did go into it professionally, and
Yeah.
that is a way through. It's a way to kind of get a sense of who you are as a performer and the kind of roles that you're suited for and all that sort of stuff too. Again, and I think for me, it's something about the discipline of having to learn a song or learn a dance routine or whatever it might
Yeah.
be. I think that also helps with things like Shakespeare and performance generally as well. Well, final thing to ask you, Leo, is
Oh dear.
no, nothing scary, honestly.
So
Is there anything coming up on screen, anything coming up in theatre that you'd like to share that's happening sort of in the next few months that people can see you in?
I'm not doing panto this year, partly because my choice of work these days is got to be done. Not got to be, but I choose to be able to get home for Christmas. The last panto I did was too far away. Professionally, it would have gone against the grain if I'd been so far away that I could get home, but I couldn't get back for the performance on Boxing Day. So I made the choice that I would always be able to get home for Christmas. So in the end, I'm not doing panto this year, but what I've done is I'm doing an immersive thing on the Polar Express. So I was originally asked. Funnily enough, it's one of the few auditions I've gone into, and the director has come up and given me a hug and a kiss. Nice chap. We've known each other for 40 odd years. I wanted to read for the conductor, the Tom Hanks role, although they're all Tom Hanks, but that's the main one. Or Santa. I was asked to read for Santa. In the end, when they sent me bits of script and watched the show, I chose a different character altogether. I've gone for and got the role of the hobo, who I found a fascinating character, because we know it's all magical, but he's a completely mystical character, but he's just totally different to
Yeah.
the standard. Hey, there's the conductor. Hey, I'm Santa. No, the hobo's a slightly darker character, so that attracted me a lot. So I'm doing him.
Oh, brilliant. When's that
Yeah,
going on? When's that happening?
that's in Manchester, and it's from November through to New Year's Eve. On screen, released earlier this year, was Bank of Dave 2. It's on Netflix. The original Bank of Dave was created by a guy local to us in Burnley who went against the banks and decided that they were basically screwing people for money and not helping. So he decided to open his own bank. he sold transit vans and minibuses for a living, but he was well off. So he decided he wanted to create a bank that would be able to, that people could save, grow their money, but he would invest in local businesses as well. And he's been very successful. His turnover is millions, and he's helped so many businesses in the area. That was the first film. Bank of Dave 2 was where he took on what they call payday lenders. I don't know if you have them there.
Yeah, we do.
You know?
Yeah.
And he discovered that they were rip-off merchants from America, and he took them on and won. And that's what the second film's based about. And I just have a quick vignette, cameo appearance, as you might say, as one of the ripped-off customers. So that's out on Netflix at the moment.
There we go, guys. So you can see Leo on Netflix. Bank of Dave 2.
Brassic, as you know about, Brassic was one of the ones. I'm also on, I did a character in an adaptation for BBC of A Kind of Spark, where I play Mr. Patterson, and the full whiskers and very strange, that sort of thing. So
very cool.
So that's it. Yeah, it's all in the bio, Chuck.
It's all in the bio. Yeah, right. And links and stuff. Just go to the IMDb. It'll all be there. We'll link all of that up. No, that's
someday
amazing.
Soon. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so finally, where can people find out more about you? Speaking of links, whereabouts can they go to find out all this information?
Well, IMDb, of course. I don't have a website. Winding a career down means that you tend not to need the publicity, but Circuit Personal Management is my agent, and so they can link through. But I tend not to be a great networker because I'm, modesty and all that.
Right.
It goes, all this publicity, self-publicity goes against the grain.
So very British of you. Yes,
British, yeah, it is. It's very hard, yeah. But I've got so much stuff on YouTube, so the show must go online.
Absolutely, and IMDb will have links to everything as well, people. So
I'm sure.
We will definitely put you through there. Excellent. Well, I think that concludes our chat. Leo Atkin, thank you for being part of Musing on the Bard.
It's been a pleasure. Not been as terrifying as I feared.
It's been a delight. You've been a delight, as always.
You just let me run at the mouth. So
damn straight. Of course. And you said also so many interesting things, which is fabulous. So it gives me lots to work with.
Yeah. I hope so, yeah.
Thank you for joining me for today's episode. I've been your host, Sally McLean, and this has been Musing on the Bard. You can read more about our work, all our guests, and this podcast at our official website, musingonthebard.com. If you want to see the video version of this podcast, head to our Patreon. Links are on the site. This podcast was made possible via a small events grant from the British Shakespeare Association. Produced by Incognita Enterprises, edited and presented by Sally McLean. With thanks to all of our guests and our Patreon patrons for continuing to support our work. Until next time, I wish you health, wealth, and happiness. See you anon.